only on Newcastle Live Radio.
You're with Tracy Mack on Newcastle Live Radio. Thank you for your company on this Tuesday morning. Now, as we all know, trolling is horrendous. It's something that many of us have experienced, but it appears to be that the higher you are in life and the more public your profile is, the more people seem to have this innate right to abuse our elected officials or our high-profile sports people, and it's just not right. Now, somebody this week has actually said, no, I'm sorry, enough is enough, after being trolled relentlessly for the last week. Joining me on the line now is Senator Hollie Hughes. Good morning. How are you, Hollie?
Good morning, Tracy.
Now, tell us, for our listeners who aren't aware and haven't followed this story over the last couple of days, like I have, you have a beautiful son who is autistic, and you've advocated for a long time about early intervention and getting these early things in place. But you've had some interesting responses from those who don't believe the same as you do.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting couple of days, a week, but there were some issues I became involved with last week around some of the early intervention centres and some issues around NDIS plans. And so I was working with that organisation to try and support them and find a solution, which we're still working through. But they are one of the very few centres that provide very good intensive early intervention, but actually provided in a long day care setting. So what that means is parents with an autistic child can go to work. They know their child's getting the therapy they require within the daycare setting. It's small classes, it's, some one-on-one, and it's all data-driven, best practice therapy. So these kids learn not only how to communicate, sometimes with assisted technology, but, they work on their speech. But it's things like toilet training that is so important and can take an extended period of time with an autistic child, that they work on those skills. But it also has a long daycare component, again, so parents can work. So I made a quick speech last week about how it's so important that we have these best practice centres and clinics. But one of the problems we're having with the NDIS is they make this assumption that if you go to somewhere as a clinic, you're somehow removing family participation. So I said, this is ridiculous. You don't think those programs continue when kids go home? They don't go home and suddenly they're not autistic anymore. Yeah. These toilet training programs, food resistance programs, behaviour modification programs to remove self-harming that some of these kids do, that all continues at home. So I made a speech on that in the Parliament, and then I was speaking on Paul Murray one night, and Paul actually played most of the speech and then sort of said, what's going on here? And I said, well, we've got some autistic adults, and sort of part of this new woke agenda being pushed as the authentic autistic voice. And I think it's fantastic that there's people that are older, that are autistic, that are advocating for themselves. But a lot of these people were diagnosed later in life, never experienced early intervention, have, multiple degrees or qualifications, they have jobs, they have families and relationships. And these are things some of our kids at the more severe end of the spectrum are likely never to have, or it will be, hugely challenging for them. And what these early intervention programs are there to do is to give them the best opportunity at that. So I've sort of made the point, I welcome the autistic voice, please advocate for yourselves, but please stop attacking parents that are doing best practice therapies for their children. Well, I don't know what you would have said, but the abuse that just came, ironically, from these autistic adults, that I had tortured my son with the therapy that we'd done. People have written to me and told me he's more likely to be sexually abused because of the therapy that we did. They have told me that they hope he grows up to hate me, that I've tortured him and abused him. I mean, there is no one in this world I love more than that child. There is nothing I wouldn't do for him. He's just my favourite human that's ever breathed, and it just got to the point where I thought, you know what, enough's enough. You guys have got plenty of echo chambers. But for every other parent of an autistic child that was following those posts, that was reading that abuse, I'm not providing that for them anymore. I'm just not doing it. Because there's a lot of parents out there that are confused and they don't know where to go and they don't know where to access services. And when they read this abuse coming through, you know, they're not going to ask questions. They're not going to put their head up. So I thought, well, that's it. See you later. You're all gone.
Good on you.
So that's what we're doing.
And you know what? It is such a confusing time anyway. You know, I've got a very close friend whose son was diagnosed as autistic, and she has done everything possible to make this young man now be the very best that he can be around his autism. And how can any parent not provide that to their child, and how can that be criticised? I don't understand that.
There's a real sort of problem within the autistic community that there's a lot of anger. And it's not every autistic adult, and, you know, I'm sure I'm going to be setting myself up for a whole new barrage, but it's not every autistic adult. It's a select few of them who pile on this abuse, who have these views. But the people they fundamentally hate most in the world are autism mums. Like, it's really quite... I mean, there's a disability advocate, and I'm not going to name her today, but when I did Q&A not long ago on an autism-specific show, and Nicole Rogerson, who's the CEO of Autism Awareness Australia, was also on with me, and she's a fellow autism mum, this disability advocate tweeted saying, I wish there was a vaccine against autism mums.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You know, and so just because someone's got a disability doesn't automatically make them a nice person, let me tell you, and I think that some people find that difficult to comprehend. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there that are very, very nasty. But I work with this autistic savant who's just incredible, in his 20s. And, you know, I just adore him and what he's doing and the work that he's doing to help other autistics. But he saw some of this abuse and he said to me, you know what, Hol? If it wasn't for autism mums, half the schools, half the clinics, half the, you know, flashcard companies and sensory toy places and all that stuff wouldn't exist.
No.
There's no more determined group of people in this world than an autism parent, and so many of us work so hard for our kids. You know, and what I was saying, ironically, was, you know, if you're an autistic adult, advocate for yourself, but leave parents alone, and to then get the pile on.
I don't understand it, and it's why I wanted to chat with you today, because you know, I know myself how well it's worked for many other people. Just because it wasn't the way that your parent or that you were directed doesn't make it wrong for somebody else.
No, and that's the thing. Everyone should have choice and not be abused for that choice. But the thing is, you know, coming to the deeper issue of trolling, I mean, you know, what I said to my staff on the weekend was we're going to have to do something about this. It's heading to anti-vax level, you know, because the anti-vaxxers are normally the keen...
They're the ones that normally attack you. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they love me too, still. But, you know, what I find, and particularly with a lot of my liberal female colleagues, is it happens to all of us to varying degrees, but quite often it's very violent, it's highly sexualised. I mean, it really is more and worse than what any of the guys ever get, ever. Like, it's just a real difference in the sort of misogynistic overtones that come through from some of these trolls as well.
And you know, the sad thing as well, Hollie, is that most of the trolls that are like this, a lot of them are female, and we're attacking our own. Yeah, we eat our own, and I don't understand that either when it comes to trolling. Look,
well, that's why I always said that march they did last year, this year, whatever they did for women or something, I refused to go, because it wasn't for all women. It was for women who agree with my political views.
Yeah.
With women who sit on my side of the political fence. If you're a conservative woman, no, you deserve it. And I've literally had female commentators say that on Twitter, that we deserve it.
No one deserves it.
So it's just extraordinary. I mean, it's par for the course, and, you know, I'm pretty tough and sort of a bit of a water off the duck's back, but it was Julian McGrath, who's, you know, the Cybersecurity Commissioner. I probably got her title wrong, but she's amazing. And Julie was the one that just said, you know what, Hollie, report and block, report and block, report and block. And it's incredible advice, and I'd say to anyone who gets this, because I know sometimes it happens to people who don't have a high profile, who don't have staff to shield them from some of the worst of it. But, you know, just report and block and get rid of it. Like, you just don't need it. And the sad little people that are at home and the keyboard warriors, it's the best thing you can do.
Without doubt. Take the power away from them, take the voice away from them, and that's the greatest thing you can do. Well, look, thank you for joining me, and I really am sad that this has happened, especially standing up for something like your son and like the other autistic parents out there that are doing a fantastic job and should be congratulated, not trolled.
Thank you, Tracy.
My pleasure. That is Senator Hollie Hughes. You're with Tracy Mack on Newcastle Live Radio.